One of my favourite websites is the Drudge Report. It's been around since the early 1990s, and as you can see, it has a pretty bare bones design. It updates once or twice per day and aggregates news stories from across the web. And it also has a lot of click-worthy content. I really like the Drudge Report model because it gets millions of page views and basically it's a pretty simple but straightforward site. So I wanted to see if I could create something for the AI space. The AI space changes pretty much every day. It's hard to keep on top of what's happening. New models are released and there are big developments with the different tools. I wanted to keep track of what's happening with AI without spending half my day wading through Google News, X and other social media feeds. So I decided to vibe code an AI news aggregator. Once I came up with the idea for an AI news aggregator, I headed over to Lovable. Now if you're not familiar with this tool, I have another video on the channel where I show you exactly how you can use it. Suffice to say, it's a vibe coding tool. In other words, you write prompts and AI will turn your ideas into code. And after some backwards and forwards, so the whole conversation took about an hour or two, Lovable came up with this bare bones design. It called my site AI News Hub and it started to surface some AI content from across the web. The design looked pretty good, but all of this content was basically placeholder content that was out of date. And it certainly wasn't a static content site that updated every day with the latest developments from AI and tech. Still, I had something that I could work with. Once I got an early prototype from Lovable that I was reasonably happy with, granted most of the links weren't working, I exported all of the code to my desktop. Then I headed over to Cursor. Now if you're not familiar with Cursor, this is what developers use to code and also to vibe code. I took out a premium subscription to Cursor and I opened it up on my Mac. And then I asked Cursor to analyze all of the code that I generated with Lovable. And it was able to figure out exactly what I was trying to do. And it took some backwards and forwards over the course of a couple of days to iterate my project. Basically, I had to prompt and describe what I needed, provide working examples, and so on to the LLMs inside of Cursor. You can, of course, select from different LLMs inside of Cursor, so I mostly use Claude 3.7 and Gemini to turn my idea into something that I could publish. Now, the key difference between Cursor and Lovable is that you can actually just jump into each of the individual files and start to write or edit or update them yourself. And you can even set specific rules for your project so that AI doesn't go down some sort of tangent. In other words, you have much more control and customization than you're going to get with vibe coding tools that exist online. Oh, and it's also a lot cheaper to use when you start to do dozens and dozens of different prompts every day. So once I got a version or a prototype that I was happy with from Cursor, I deployed it to GitHub. Now I don't have a huge amount of experience using GitHub, or at least I didn't until I started on this vibe coding project. So now I have lots of different repositories, but I created a specific repository for Promptwire, which was one of the early names that I came up for this AI news aggregator. And then I decided to host the project over on Netlify, which is a static content website. Now, if all of this sounds very technical, don't worry. Cursor was able to walk me through all of this step by step. It did take a little bit of trial and error the first time around, but I'd feel reasonably comfortable doing this today. I went backwards and forwards with Cursor and I came up with Promptwire. This is an early version of my AI news aggregator. It's a pretty bare bones looking site with no real news stories on it. And it took a bit of trial and error to figure out that I needed to use APIs to surface actual news stories on my site. So I set up APIs for sites like Reddit and also for some popular news publications and also with Perplexity, which is another popular AI tool for surfacing content from across the web. Once I connected all of my various APIs, I started to iterate and improve on the design. So if I start working through some of the various pages, you can see some of the changes that I made. So for example, I included a section that has an AI prompt of the day, and I also began to categorize some of the news stories. So I'm going to jump over to the homepage of what is now called the AI Flash Report. This is a daily AI news roundup that updates once per day. And it categorizes the latest AI stories from across the web. I came up with a number of different categories, including what's trending, the latest AI products, the creator economy, generative AI, AI business, AI research, AI in practice, AI companies, ethics and policy, and of course my prompt of the day. And if I click on these links, you can see it will take me through to working news stories from across the web about ChatGPT and about whatever is happening in the space. So now, rather than wading through my social media feed and wading through various mainstream media, I simply check the AI Flash report once per day to see what's happening in the space. And this gives me ideas for my daily newsletter and also for products that I can create related to AI. And of course, at any time I can go to the archive, much like the Drudge report, and I can start to access previous pages from the AI Flash report. I would say development for this entire project took me about 25 hours, maybe a little bit more. But bear in mind, I don't have a huge coding background, and it took me a little bit of time to figure out things like deploying to GitHub, connecting APIs, and so on. I tried to keep things simple with a bare bones design, so I deliberately did things like avoiding images and avoiding having a lot of content apart from links on the site. If you'd like to keep up with the space, do head over to the AI Flash report and check it out. And if you have feedback, let me know in the comments section below this video. If you want to improve your prompt writing skills to create something like this, I've actually created a valuable resource which you may find helpful. It contains 101 proven prompts that you can use for LLMs like GPT and Claude, and I'll include a link to that in the notes below this video.